Hi everybody, welcome back to Analogue, a hate story. I'm just gonna jump right in because it's getting... Well, when I saved it said we're at 70% recovered, so... getting close to the end. These are the newest entries of the Pale Bride's diary. This sounds so pathetic to say. I've tried rewriting this a million times just to make it sound less pathetic for me, and I simply cannot. There were two things that made life worthwhile. Two things that made this last year before I die bearable. The first was Jiahui's company, being the one person that was friendly to me. The second is sharing a bed with my husband. For the past few months, that's what I've been saving all my energy for. That brief, precious half hour every few nights where I feel fulfilled. If only in the most literal sense. It's the most lovely feeling, and now I'll never feel it again. Those two things making my last year of life worth living, gone forever. The past few nights I've been trying to get the Emperor's attention in that way, pleading silently for his affections, with no luck. On the fourth, or was it fifth day, he finally took me aside and said, painful annoyance in his voice, "Enough, stop that, it is completely inappropriate. You're supposed to be in mourning, show some damn chastity, or do you have no respect for my wife and your queen at all?" He snapped. When I looked confused, he just lectured me. When I cried, he sighed, held me tightly, and then left the room. I haven't spoken to him since, but later that day, my servant came to my room with good news. I was to go visit my family for a couple months while the house is in mourning for Jiahui. I couldn't argue, of course, even if I was able, so just like that, I was sent back to hell. I was dressed in the usual veil so nobody would see my face, as I was escorted back to the Kim house in the middle of the night. Mother and father were there briefly to greet me, and in spite of how I felt about them, I put on my bravest smile and bowed, and nodded politely to their questions about how I was doing. Then they had to go to bed and left, leaving me alone with my sister. Young Seok was nowhere to be seen. "Hi," she said. "I never thought you'd end up visiting us again so soon." I shrugged. "Well, let's have some tea. It's just us still around," she said. I nodded, and it seemed like a good enough idea. There was a pause. "Well, go make it," she snapped, removing any doubt that she might treat me with any sort of friendliness. Of course I made the tea. I don't disobey her anymore. "Thanks," she said. "So young Seok is out, attending to official business at the moment, but you should avoid him. He's still angry at you because father-in-law finds you more important to the family than his own son. Can you blame him?" I had no idea what she was talking about. And she just continued, "So you really shouldn't talk to him." "Oh, well, I guess you can't really do that, can you?" "Ah, you know what I mean." Yes, I knew exactly what she meant. "I'm surprised you're back so soon, though, especially now that you don't have to share your husband. Does that mean you're the primary wife now?" I didn't know. "Does that make you queen? Oh, what great fortune you have. Father-in-law must be so proud of you." I stared at her, wishing nothing more than to be able to kill her through sheer force of rage. How could she possibly say something so awful? My only friend was dead, and here she was taunting me? What an awful thing to do. But I couldn't hate her to death, no matter how much I tried. So instead I tried holding back angry tears to hide my weakness. I couldn't do that either. I was far too feverish to do any real cooking, so my servant was doing all the work for me that night. When father came in, I think he was drunk, or maybe just tired, or stupid. "You know, child," he said to me, "you grew up to be a wonderful daughter." I was shocked to hear him say that, and I waved my servant out of the kitchen. I'd never heard even the slightest indication of that before. For the briefest moment, it even made me happy to hear that. That surprised me, that I actually felt that way. As a kid, I'd never would have wanted his approval, so why now? He continued to make me wonder. When he asked, "Do you remember what you were like as a child?" I nodded, but I wasn't certain I did. "You were so temperamental. You argued all the time. You didn't want to get married, and when the time came, you just didn't ever know your place, you know?" That's right, I didn't. That was back when I thought there was a point of being defiant. Why was it? I wondered. That's part of what amazes me now. I tried to think of a reason why I might want to be defiant, why I valued independence, and at first I couldn't think of anything. I'd forgotten entirely. Don't tell Yang Seok, but it really scared me. You were always the family's best hope for prosperity, but that attitude of yours, I thought I'd never manage to disavow you of those crazy, uncivilized ideas of yours," he said. "Well, I tried to think of what they were. There were times I thought it was a mistake to have hatched you, but you came through, you really did. I know it must have been painful, but I'm proud of you." Then he patted me on the head. "You turned out to be a good girl. That's all I wanted to say. It was hard raising you to be a proper woman, but you've turned out to be perfect. Thank you," he said. I stared speechless, and I tried to remember what crazy uncivilized ideas was he talking about. Thinking back to those days, or back to before I was frozen, I tried to remember. I had dreams of what adulthood would be, but they were so unimaginably different from what the reality turned out to be that they seemed impossible. Completely impossible, nothing more than childhood fantasies without a shred of realism to them. I tried to think of what they were, to imagine them. In those dreams, I was strong, independent. I wasn't just a wife in those dreams. I had a job, working as the ship's engineer, following in the footsteps of my father. My real father. I wasn't married in those dreams. I was happy just to go on dates with boys my age, in the ship's plaza, and fall in love before making any commitments. I dreamed of being free. The more I thought about it, the more I was certain that's what those dreams were about. That's what I'd wanted. But Father, Kim Jong-soo, rather, made sure to disavow me of those notions. I learned to stop arguing, to stop trying to fight, to stop dreaming all of those things. In other words, I learned how to be a proper woman, and he was proud of that. Proud of destroying my dreams, and now I would die, under the house of that man, silenced, broken, hopeless, and unloved. I was overwhelmed by the strongest feeling I had ever felt in my life. The deepest bitterness, the most powerful resentment I could imagine. I looked at the knife near my hand and wondered, could I kill him? Before I died, could I at least have justice? I tried to lift the knife. My hand twitched, and it was too hard to keep a grip. I was just too weak. I'd never be able to do it. He smiled at me and said, "Sorry, please go ahead, keep cooking. I won't distract you anymore." Then, just as he was about to go out the door, he added, "Take care of yourself." At that moment, I vowed that I would. I wouldn't worry anymore about all those people who had hurt me. I'd take care of myself. I couldn't stab him to death. I was too weak for that. But then I remembered there were other ways. If I disable life support, and I can kill him, and all the others too. It'll be quick, it'd be easy, and not a one of them don't deserve it. All I'd need to disable it is the admin password. It's perfect. Now you know it's true. I did do what she said I did. I'm not going to lie. I really wish you'd never met her. I wish she'd never said anything to you. I just thought it was so nice the way things were with us before. Things started out so well. I got to be cheery for the first time in my life since I was a child. Talking about actual romantic things together, having fun with cosplay, and just, having someone there to talk to who wasn't interested in shutting me up. But now, please, you've read my diary. You have to understand you have to understand, right? Even if you think what I did was wrong, look, I've never been dishonest with you. Fine, I lied about being an AI, but I told you the truth. I could have deceived you, but I didn't. Please, you still trust me, right? I'd never really lie to you, not seriously. You don't have to think what I did was acceptable, but please tell me you trust me. Sure, let's trust. I should have had faith in you. I'm really bad at this, but thank you so much. I can't believe I doubted you for a second. That means a lot to me. It means so much. I'm sure what I did wasn't right, but I'm sure you don't think it was. I just want you to understand. For someone She keeps going to say I'm in love, and then she erases everything. For someone as good to me as you've been, I want you to at least please understand. You don't have to forgive me. Just hear me out. You're a really good person, much better than me, thank you. It's probably better if I just show you. There's a data block that contains all the logs that matter, but my family encrypted it because, well, it should be obvious why after you read it. You need to drop to the terminal and decrypt block 7. Okay. These are hard for me to read. I haven't seen mine since I wrote them, and I haven't seen my family's ever. I've added some. Please read them. If you want to know the whole story, those entries will explain. It seems that in the year I spent visiting my parents, everything has gone to hell in my husband's family without his knowing. Clearly, I never should have left. He has an idea, but he doesn't understand just how bad things have gotten. When I left, it all seemed under control. The pale bride would be of the right age to be married to the emperor soon enough, and we would be able to use that connection to bring favor to the family. A good plan, except, as it turns out, the pale bride is not even close to ready for marriage. Age has nothing to do with it. It's the maturity that she lacks. When she first awoke right before I left, she seemed a little confused, but that was hardly unexpected. She had a whole new family to get accustomed to, and it was obvious enough that anyone born so far in the past would have some difficulty adjusting to modern life. But this was far beyond that. There was something simply wrong with that child. When I got back, the first thing Young Seok's wife did was tell me about how sorry she was for not being able to control the child. I rolled my eyes, as if a grown woman couldn't handle someone of her age. How are you going to raise my grandson like that? I asked. She was quiet and let me see the pale bride for myself. The first time I saw Young Seok try to get her to do something as simple as sort his laundry, she wasn't just disobedient, she was openly defiant. When I stepped in to admonish her, it had absolutely no effect. All she did was argue back at me. I tried every approach I could think of, appealing to... Alright, we're gonna look this word up, because I still have no idea what it means. And every time I say I'm gonna look it up, I then forget. So, filiality. Filial. If you describe something as filial, you're saying it's offspring related depending on who your parents are. Your filial duties might include taking out the trash, washing dishes, or ruling empires. Okay. I tried appealing to filiality, explaining how important a virtue obedience was, even trying to appeal to sentimentality, everything. She just kept saying the same thing, that it wasn't fair to make her do. Here's the obvious concern, and that's what I said to her. Are you going to tell your husband he's not being fair when he wants something from you? I thought that would put some sense into her, but no, she just answered yes. There's no way this unruly child could possibly be marriageable. Not like this. She'd be sent back within a day. And with good reason. What man could possibly want a nightmare like her in his life? This is the first time I read what she wrote, and it's just, well, there's more. Read them for yourself. The good news is, health-wise, I seem to be doing much better this month. I'm sure this isn't a permanent thing. It's happened before. I can't really remember how the doctor from the past explained it anymore, but he said it was pretty normal, and not something to get my hopes up about. Still, some days this month I actually had enough energy to want to move around. Not that I could move around, of course. I can't leave the house. A good girl shouldn't. It's what everyone says. Everyone keeps saying, but I have the energy to at least, and that's something. The big news is that the woman who's supposed to be my adopted mother came back. I didn't really see her much before she left. I might as well have been meeting a new person. I wish I could say I had high hopes for her, that I thought that she might be fine. That'd be a lie, though. I knew she'd be as bad as the rest the moment I saw her. And she was, of course. She's even worse than sister-in-law. She gives these awful lectures. I can't even describe them. They're that horrible. She's that horrible. If you're so worried, why don't you just explain everything to her, simply and rationally? Jung-soo asked me. My response was obvious. She's a woman. We're not particularly rational. He said, you know what I mean. I could hardly do it, but coming from a woman, perhaps she will understand that it's all for her own good. Maybe, I said, doubting it. But I tried anyway. She took her time arriving after I summoned her to my room. Can we speak? I asked her, trying to keep my voice calm. She glared, then snapped. Fine. I asked her to sit down, but she refused. Look, I said, trying to speak to her as an equal. I still didn't think my husband was right, but it was worth trying. I've been told you'd rather be called Huan Ai, maybe. Is that right? Yes, she said, bitterly, not giving me much to go off. That's a pretty name, I said. Thanks, she said, but her voice was still unfriendly. My parents gave it to me. I said, you must miss them very much. She nodded. I don't understand, Huan Ai. Were you difficult to them too? No, she said. They were nice. They actually cared about me. They're nothing like you people. I sighed. I care about you. You're part of the family. You're Kim. Your parents are our ancestors, and I know they think it's very important that we raise you right. If you want to be a bad, unfilial daughter and treat us without any respect, well, you wouldn't be the first. Do you really think an old woman like me cares that much about your opinion of me? I thought maybe I'd try appealing to her selfishness. Her marriage is important to the family, but clearly she doesn't care about filiality. I hate that damn word, guys. It's you I'm worried about. Do you think any husband is really going to put up with you the way you are, even for a second? She kept glaring at me. That's all you keep talking about. Marriage, marriage, marriage. I'm 14. 14 years old. What's wrong with you? Why does everything have to be about some man? Why do I have to marry somebody that you picked? She screamed at me. I remained calm. You're going to be a royal concubine. We're not dumping you off on just anyone. There's no better man. I don't know if you were already engaged in the past, but your parents would do the same if they could. It's what's best for you. They would want this. No, they wouldn't, she shrieked. They wanted me to grow up. They wanted me to be an independent woman. That's what Mom and Dad thought was important. I don't want to be a concubine. I don't care about marriage. An independent woman? They wanted you to be a whore? I asked. My patience run as thin as anyone's would be. I didn't believe for a second that my husband's ancestors were the monsters she was making them out to be, and I was sick of this. Sick of this. Get out, I snapped at her. Just get out. Can I have yours, then? My diary makes it sound dramatic. Just read it. It's how it went. Dearest Mother, my mother-in-law has relieved me of any responsibility for looking after the pale bride. As a matter of pride, I feel bad that a simple child is too much for me to handle, but I'm certainly glad she's not my problem anymore. Now I can put my undivided attention back where it belongs, onto my husband and his ambitions. Tell me though, Mother, because I know we didn't always get along that well. I was never that bad, was I? Sure, we were both happy when I moved out. Well, perhaps I wasn't happy right away. I was more scared, but I'm sure you were relieved to have some space. But you would never have given up on me, right? I was never that bad, was I? Deep down I worry. My husband seems content to take his time to have children, and which is a decision I can certainly live with, but what about when we do? What if we have a daughter? Will I fail with her too? I've been telling myself that it's not me, it's her. She's a bad, peculiar, unruly child, and it's not ordinarily that bad. It's not, right? Please tell me I have nothing to worry about. When I woke up, she was just this awful person who kept saying the most awful things. Never as bad as Mother, but still. I didn't read any of her letters when I was alive, of course, but you know what really surprised me? She made such an awful impression on my life. I hated her the most for so long. and she barely even ever mentioned me. All of my suffering was just a minor distraction to her, nothing more, insignificant compared to her man. There's one more from her that you should read. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know how to feel about her. There's just one thing that I keep thinking, though. I have no idea what her name was. Everything managed to spiral out of control so quickly today. I wasn't planning on it happening this way, but here's the point where I make my stand, I guess. It sounds dramatic, but I just won't let them marry me off to some stranger. I won't let them. Just before dinner yesterday, Mother told me that I had to go to an interview with some man. The Emperor, I guess, for all I care. The way she put it was, I'd get a chance to see that he's a man you could fall in love with, or something stupid like that. As if, I said in response. And I spent the rest of the evening thinking about what I could possibly do to make it clear I wouldn't let them do this. My husband comes out, starts throwing cups and making a ton of noise.
That is a lie. I was trying to be silent, but fine.
Oh my god. This morning after breakfast, sister-in-law showed up in my room. Good morning, she said. Today's a big day for you, isn't it? Mother-in-law wanted me to help you get dressed up and all made up. You'll want to make a good first impression after all. I glared at her and summoned up all my courage. No, I said. What? She asked. No, I'm not going. She left and Mother herself came in. This was it, I told myself. This was the big moment. I'm not going, I said, before she could say anything. I'm not going to get dressed up, I'm not going to meet him, and I'm definitely not going to get married, I shouted. For a moment she said nothing, and didn't move. Then she left too, without a word. I thought that would feel good, but it didn't. It just made me worry more. I couldn't possibly have won that easy, I thought, and I hadn't, of course. After a few minutes, she returned with Father, who looked incredibly angry. Min Jung says you refused to get ready for your interview, he said. Yeah, I stammered, not used to talking to him. I won't. I won't go, and I won't get married. He walked over in just 2 strides, then glared at me for a second. I had no idea what he was going to do. Then he slapped me in the face so hard it knocked me over. Yes, you will, he said. I'll drag you there kicking and screaming if I have to. My face in so much pain I forced myself to sit back up. I won't, I said, bracing myself if he hit me again. He did. Yes, you will, he said. I couldn't keep this up. It already hurt so much. I couldn't just brave that out. Then it came to me. If you make me do the interview, I said, I'll tell the Emperor that you've been conspiring behind his back. It was all I could think of, and all I could do was cross my fingers and hope that threat worked. It had to. He glared at me, and in that moment, I knew. It worked. The two of them looked at each other, and they both left together. That was 3 hours ago. I don't know what's going to happen now, and I think my face is swollen. It still hurts, and I didn't want it to go that way. So that's me making my stand. I'm gonna stop the episode there, and we'll continue reading about this fucked up issue in the next episode.